I think the question could be asked, why do I spend time leading self? We're really trying to drive organizational performance. We're trying to drive performance not just now, but next year, not just next year, but over the next 10 years. So I think you have to ask, how do you link those two? How are they really relevant? And I think if you look at how leadership really works, and I like this definition from the Center for Creative Leadership, leadership is the social act for creating direction, this way, not that way. Alignment, we move together, not banging into each other as we go. And commitment, we have the energy to get there. That really comes from the sum total of a lot of very healthy people being willing to agree on a direction, work well with each other, and stay committed enough to get somewhere. If those people aren't healthy, effective, yes. Committed, yes. Working hard for the common good, yes. For the team goal, yes. But if they run out of gas, no good. Leaders in particular, because of the product of their work, right? The way that they facilitate collaboration, the way they facilitate adaptation, innovation, thinking differently, thinking together when that's better than thinking separately. This takes a lot of energy, right? So there's a skill set to doing that, but you can't really practice the skill set unless you have the personal capacity to stay healthy and to keep learning. And a person who's degraded metabolically, psychically, emotionally, in terms of the task saturation in their lives, cannot do that. So this leading self is about how effective you are as a self, but it's also about how healthy you are so that you can continue to learn to become more effective. And of course, you have to teach this to others as well, right? As well as learn it from others who are, know a few tricks maybe you don't. We have some sort of leadership myths, right? Do it yourself, never give up, have the answer. And there's truth to all these things, right? I mean, doing it yourself can be about personal accountability, but the wrong way, it can be about thinking you got to pull this train by yourself and everyone else is someone you're pulling, not someone who's actually creating that pull, never give up, great. People can't never give up. I mean, eventually we run out of gas, right? Or time or whatever else. So there are all these myths that we have, and I think probably some of the essential skills for leaders in terms of leading yourself are confronting those myths. When is this helpful and when not? And certainly keeping yourself healthy and capacitated. And then also, I think more fundamentally, we go on for hours about this, it's learning skills for how to help things self-organize. In our society, we tend to think you get a plan, you put a structure and a booklet together, you tell everyone what it is, and then you wonder why they're not engaged and you're not getting anywhere. And there's another way to do it, right? Which is to actually help things systematize from the ground up, from the micro interaction to the macro interaction. If this sounds like a bunch of ballyhoo, I would say it's really 3 finite skills. 1, create context. If you can create a context that's attractive to people and strategically and operationally meaningful, you're in business. Sounds easy, it's a tough skill. Second one is learn how to not just interact well, learn how to help people design interactions that work well, that drive performance, learning, attraction, collegiality, motivation. And then the third one is learn how to set up collision dynamics. If you and I talk once a year, that's nice. There's 364 days a year, we're busy with something else. So the more that leaders can think about how to lead themselves so that they're creating context for themselves and others, weaving it, right? Designing interactions, the kind of interactions that work, not just the ones we, embody ourselves, but how we help others set that up. And then how do we design multiple reps? Because we all have a lot going on. So if giving feedback is a good thing to do, giving it once a year is not nearly as good as giving it multiple times a day. And then you say, well, I don't have time. Yeah, I think that's a leader's job, is to figure out not how to create more time, but how to weave those skills into the time that we have, into the work we're already doing. So somebody's going to ask, well, where does emotional intelligence fall in? I would say this is emotional intelligence, right? Emotional intelligence is the ability to be aware, to modulate, and to develop one's self and the group you're in and the whole organization you're in terms of its ability to ask those questions, awareness, modulation, development, with regard to how we interact as emotional beings. It's simply described, right? If you're not skilled at that, how do I drive awareness in myself and others? How do I help people modulate their responses emotionally to particular situations, myself and others? And how do we develop our capacity to connect and understand emotionally? You're going to have a hard time, because people, last time I checked, are not mechanical beings. They're biological ones, and biological beings, at least humans, we have emotions. So if you're a leader, you're in the business of being intelligent about and with your emotions. That's emotional intelligence. Can you lead yourself in a vacuum? No. I mean, every action we take creates some kind of response. And it creates a response within us, cognitively, how we're thinking. It creates a response around us, right? It creates a response in our physiology, right? If I think about riding a horse in the mountains of Montana, I have a different physiological response than thinking about having a migraine stuck in traffic for 5 hours, smelling, carbon monoxide, which is actually odorless and colorless, but we know exhaust smells. So, and then there's the idea also of noticing how I do think and feel and respond to things. Well, that's a lot going on. No way you can do that in a vacuum, right? And you can't do it in an academic way. So how do we do this if you're really leading yourself well? Well, you create feedback loops, which the body does, right? If the thyroid gland's supposed to work, someone is giving the thyroid gland that feedback. Hey, we need more T3, need more T4, right? When it puts it out, that response creates feedback back to the hypothalamus, right? That's enough. We don't need any more right now. We've got to create these feedback loops within ourselves, from ourselves, and to ourselves all the time. Now, the handy part is if you're doing this well from a design perspective, within yourself, to yourself and from yourself, you're actually starting to spawn feedback as a phenomenon everywhere. Now, you can't control how someone else processes feedback. Only they can do that. But when they start observing out there how other people are doing it and how you're doing it with them or you're doing it next to them, your job becomes eminently easier. You teach yourself to be a better self as you go. You let others teach you. And of course, in doing that, you're doing the same thing over there and out there. So this ability to give and receive feedback, short, quick, easy, often, not 5 months later, 42 spreadsheets, schedule a meeting to do this, really, really formative for humans individually and in groups, which of course is what an organization is.